Hi, welcome back. This is actually Module 2.2. This is the Chief Information Officer role. As we spoke about in the last section, we were talking about how the IS organization has evolved from being purely cost-driven to being a valued partner in the business. And the CIO's role is really, the challenge for the CIO is to manage that and make sure that that continues. So the CIO role has evolved with the IS department. It used to be called a CTO or Head of Applications Development. In some cases, it reported to the finance department. There's still a cost emphasis, and a lot of CIOs are challenged to ensure that they can do more with less, which is always a common term. And the way they do this is, some of the ways they do this is with outsourcing. So they may outsource some of their functions, even though that may be controversial in some cases. It's not necessarily in the interest of a healthcare organization to outsource a majority of its development or operations to another company or out of state when that may be a state-organized or state-centric insurance company. You will see a lot of times people resent some of the functions being outsourced overseas when American jobs could be saved here. But these are really cost decisions that the CIOs have to make. That's not to say in every case outsourcing is always going to be cost efficient. You may have a cheaper cost, but there may be other costs that are embedded that will actually overall change the profitability. CIOs have to be visionaries. They are the ones who have to look ahead 3-5 years and say changes in the technology and changes in the business are going to merge at a certain point, and ask the questions, are we prepared for those changes? And in a lot of cases, in some cases, the CEO and the CIOs are very, very close. In other cases, that's not always the tale. Sometimes CEOs are very resentful of the CIOs because they do either wield a lot of power or they have a significant budget. Sometimes CEOs basically do not believe that CIOs or technology itself is really the driving force. And again, it really depends on who the CEO is and the nature of the business and how other players in the industry actually do that. You'll notice that there's a video about JCPenney where the new CEO has basically taken on a little bit of a technology mantra, and you'll see in that video, and I encourage you to take a look at it, the type of changes he's making and how changing IT is related to changing the business. So there are 4 key roles that the CIO plays. Basically, they are leading, governing, investing, and managing. They have to create the vision by understanding the business. That doesn't mean they're creating a vision for the business. What that means is that they're creating a vision for their technology department based on what the vision for the business is going to be, for what the business leaders determine it's going to be, whether it's going to be diversification strategy or whether it's going to be a consolidation strategy. You also have to make sure that there's a governance structure in there, that the systems that they put in place work together, that they have a set of standards, that people understand what their roles are within that organization, and that things aren't pretty much like the Wild West, that anybody can do whatever they want, install any software they want without repercussions. Investing is shaping the IT portfolio. So now we have the concept of, instead of projects, we're going to focus on a portfolio of projects, because every project has some sort of relation to another project. If we're doing a mobile application, it's going to require a mobile infrastructure as well. How does that relate to our existing data warehouse project? What type of integration and interfaces are we going to need to make sure that the data can go from the mobile application and be seen by the same customer, say on the web or in our automated voice response system on a telephone, where you punch in the numbers and it asks you press 1 if you want to check the status of your claim or the status of your order. As well as managing and fostering change, ensuring that what we do today we can continue to do, and that we can continue to foster the change needed within the organizations. A lot of times the technical groups are very, very resistant to change, and that itself is a problem. So within leading, there are 7 approaches that they can use to take. Basically, for CIOs to lead, they have to get people to go in the direction that they need to go in without just forcing them to do so. One of the ways they can do that is encourage project teams to study the marketplace, encouraging individuals within the IT organization to become business focused. That's what this is. Go to conferences about customer relationship, go to conferences about logistics. Concentrate on lines of business. Maybe they're going to concentrate specifically on marketing or on finance. One of the ways that they can also do this is by doing something called co-location, where IT professionals are actually embedded within the departments that they service most. So you might see an application developer embedded in the finance department, or an application developer embedded in the marketing department or legal department, so they can understand more of what those groups are doing. The other benefit to that is that IS doesn't seem to be in a glass tower. you have an individual there who is actually relating to the work that's being done in that particular department and fostering that relationship. Also, they can sponsor weekly briefings. They can ensure that the communication between IT and the other business units are there. Attending industry meetings with line executives basically means that that professionals within the technology department are going to business meetings, IT industry meetings, with the people who are going there in the first place. So you're creating this collaboration and corroboration of um, this camaraderie between the executives, so they can say, "Hey, this is what we need to do collectively, as opposed to what you need to do." As well as reading industry publications, as opposed to just technical publications. Hold informal listening sessions. You'll see some CIOs actually hold town hall meetings to say, "Hey, this is what we're doing, and what do you need us to do?" And become a partner with a particular line executive. So that this partnership is really is a theme that continues in a lot of organizations. So basically, it's understand the business, understand the industry, talk to people, and communicate effectively. And that's really what the CIOs not only expect of themselves, but they expect their teams to do the same thing. Governance is a little bit different because governance is basically about making sure that things operate the way they should. It's the assignment of decision rights and accountability to encourage desirable behavior in the use of IT. An example of governance is that everybody has a strict password, so that it must be 8 characters long and must include a number and a punctuation mark. That's a type of governance. That your PC is on for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes of inactivity, it basically goes into a screensaver for a lockdown. Those are security governance items. Other type of governance items are that we will only introduce applications that are Java-based or web services-based. And the reason we do that is because our team may only have those set of skills, and so therefore we have to ensure that we can maintain them appropriately. So governance is about deciding who makes decisions, and whereas management is about making decisions once decision rights have been assigned. So who's going to make those decisions, and who's going to basically make the call? And basically you'll see things like architecture teams, or a working council that will basically have business leaders as well as technical leaders and an architect who basically say, "Hey, this is going to be our standard for doing this type of activity." So numerous business scandals have prompted increased interest in this area, from the Enron to Global Crossing and HIH in Australia. What we find is that the governance structure is required. Things like ITIL and COBIT are required for, these are, and you'll hear these terms a little bit later, but these are frameworks that are designed to have repeatability, accountability, and transparency within technology frameworks. And significant changes came from Sarbanes-Oxley. So you saw a lot of technology functions inside of accounting firms be divested because Sarbanes-Oxley said you could not be an accounting firm for a company as well as handle the technology for that firm, because of the potential impropriety or conflict of interest that actually held. It's very good. If you're interested, read up in Google on Sarbanes-Oxley and IT, and you'll see how that came about and what Enron was actually doing, which was the impetus for Sarbanes-Oxley. Centralizing all IT decisions is really not a solution. You can't just have everything centralized to one person or even one group. It has to be a balance between what the business wants and what technology needs. So there has to be this collaborative nature of governance. It cannot just be an individual making the decisions, because it just doesn't work that way. Not only is it not effective, but it tends not to be followed. It actually tends to be resented.